Erev Tov Rabotai, we are continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Terumot. We're up to Perek Hey Mishnah Bet. Today's Mishnah should be Le'nushmat Neria ben Tzveldana Aran Bayev and Eliyahu ben Bracha Israelov Menuchatam Began Eden Amen. In yesterday's Mishnah, we dealt with cases in which Terumah became mixed with Chulin, and there was not enough Chulin to nullify it. There was not 100 times more Chulin to nullify the Terumah that fell in. Now we're going to discuss when there is enough Chulin in the mixture to nullify the Terumah, and both the Chulin and Terumah are Tahor, an amount of produce that is equal to the amount of Terumah that became mixed in is separated from the mixture. That separated portion is treated like Terumah and given to a Kohen, and the rest of the mixture is permitted even to a non-Kohen. Today's Mishnah is going to discuss a case where Terumah that was Tameh became mixed with Chulin, and there is enough Chulin in the mixture to nullify the Terumah. Se'at Terumah Tme'ah shenarfara letoch me'ah Chulin teorin. If a se'ah of Terumah that is Tameh fell into 100 se'ah of Chulin that is Tahor, and the reason that it's Tahor, the Rav explains, is the Chulin grains were never in contact with one of the 7 liquids that make a food Huchshar l'tumah, prepared for Tumah, which we said was dew, water, wine, oil, blood, milk, and honey, and therefore they didn't become Tameh from the Terumah, they stayed Tahor. Now, if a se'ah of Terumah that is Tameh fell into 100 se'ah of Chulin that is Tahor, Rabbi Eliezer says, Terom v'tisaref, a se'ah is separated, given to a Kohen, and burned up. And the Mefarshim explain, because there is enough Chulin to nullify the Terumah, all the produce in the mixture is considered Chulin that is Tahor. However, the Chachamim decreed that even in this case, you have to remove an amount of produce that is equal to the amount of Terumah that became mixed in and give it to a Kohen, even though it's nullified in the mixture. She'ani omer se'ah she'nafla hi se'ah she'alta. Because Rabbi Eliezer says, I can say that the se'ah of Terumah that fell in is the se'ah of produce that was removed, meaning the se'ah that is separated replaces the se'ah of Terumah that fell in, which was Tameh. Therefore, the se'ah that is separated is treated as Terumah Tme'ah. So like Terumah Tme'ah, it cannot be eaten, it must be burned. However, unlike regular Terumah Tme'ah, the Kohen cannot use it as fuel. He has to destroy it and he cannot have any benefit from it at all. And the Mefarshim explain that the sages were concerned that if a Kohen would be allowed to use it as fuel, he may assume that the original Terumah was completely nullified and this se'ah of produce can be eaten as well. In actuality, however, it's not true. Since the se'ah replaces the original Terumah that was Tameh, it may not be eaten, just like the original Terumah could not be eaten. So to prevent the Kohen from eating it, Rabbi Eliezer says he cannot have any benefit from it at all and must destroy it. Now, the reason why we normally separate some produce as Terumah after Terumah was nullified in Chulin is to make up the loss to the Kohen for the original Terumah that was lost. Here, however, the produce that we give him has to be destroyed anyway and has no value. So why do I have to give it to the Kohen in order for him to burn it? What's the point of him burning it? Just burn it yourself, throw it out. So the Tosfot explains that the Mefarshim bring down here, and the arts elucidated, that Rabbi Eliezer holds that the Chachamim, the sages, made a general decree to give some produce to a Kohen whenever Terumah is nullified by Chulin, even if the reason for the decree does not apply in every case. Like in our case, when it's Tameh, you still have to give it to the Kohen and then he'll burn it. However, the Mishnah continues, V'chachamim omrim, but the sages say, Ta'aleh v'te'achel nikudim o klayot, a se'ah is removed and given to a Kohen and is eaten dried or roasted, meaning the Kohen can eat it because it's treated as Terumah that is Tahor. And the Mefarshim explain, because the original Terumah that was Tameh was nullified, the entire mixture is considered Tahor. Therefore, the sages hold that even though the Chachamim decreed that a se'ah of produce must be given to the Kohen to make up for the Terumah, it doesn't make it the same status as the original Terumah. Rather, it's treated like Terumah that is Tahor, since the produce itself is now Tahor. Therefore, you can eat it dried or roasted. However, it cannot be kneaded into dough, since when the Chulin that is Tameh comes into contact with water, it can make the Terumah become Tameh. In actuality, the Mefarshim explain this is not a problem here. Why? Since the original Terumah Tme'ah was nullified in the mixture, it's considered Tahor now. Therefore, it would be allowed for a Kohen to eat it, even if it came into contact with one of these 7 liquids. But again, the Chachamim prohibited this case as well. Or tilosh b'mei perot, or it should be kneaded with fruit juice that is not one of these 7 types of liquids which make a food huchshar l'tumah, prepared for tumah. Or titchalek leisot kedei shelo yeh b'makom echad kebetza, or it should first be divided into portions of dough in a manner that there is not an X volume of terumah tmeh in any one place. Now, since there is less than an X volume of tmeh, since less than an egg's food an X volume of tameh food cannot transmit tumah, the rest of the produce will not become tameh even when mixed in with water. And since the mixture contains 1 part terumat tmeah for every 100 parts of chulin, a dough containing the volume of 101 eggs is assumed to contain the volume of 1 egg of terumah, and based on this, you would actually be allowed to knead a dough up to the volume of 101 eggs, brought down by the Mefarshim, again in the article elucidated. That is in Rabotai of Mishnah Bet. Mishnah Gimel now continues to discuss now that we discussed the halacha in a situation where se'av terumat tme'ah became mixed with 100 se'av chulin that is tahor, the Mishnah now deals with a case where 1 se'av terumat teorah became mixed with 100 se'av chulin that is tameh, the reverse case. The one that filled in was tahor and the 100 that were already there was tameh. So here too a se'ah has to be removed and given to a kohen, and the terumah is nullified by the chulin. The Mishnah teaches now, what do you do with the se'ah that is removed? So the Mishnah says, se'ah terumah teorah shenafla leme'ah chulin tme'ah. If a se'ah of terumah tehorah fell into 100 se'ah of chulin that is tameh, ta'aleh v'te'achel nikudim o klayot, a se'ah is removed and given to a kohen, and it is eaten only dried or roasted. Again, the Mefarshim point out, the reason that this se'ah of terumah is still considered terumah, even though it fell in produce that is impure, is because the terumah grains had never come into contact with any of the 7 liquids that prepare a food for tumah. Therefore, they didn't become tameh from the chulin. So the Mishnah says it is removed, given to a kohen, and eaten only dried or roasted, because the kohen is allowed to eat it. Why? Because it's treated as terumah that is tahor, but it cannot be kneaded into dough, since it will become tameh when it comes into contact with water, or tilosh b'mei perot, or it should be kneaded with fruit juice that is not one of the 7 types of liquids that make a food prepared for tumah, or titchalek li'isot kedei shelo yeh b'makom echad kebetza, or it should first be divided into small portions of dough, that there is not an X volume in any one place, because less than an X volume of tameh food cannot transmit tumah. And the Mefarshim explain, although the entire se'ah that is removed is treated as terumah, only a small part of it is actually terumah. Since we are treating the se'ah as terumah, the part that is the actual terumah is not seen as being nullified. Therefore, since the mixture actually contains chulin that is tameh, the chulin could cause the terumah to become tameh, and therefore we have to be careful to prepare it in a way that it cannot become tameh. However, the rest of the produce can be prepared in the usual manner because it's viewed as chulin that is tameh, which can be eaten by all. Now, even the Mefarshim point out, even Rabbi Eliezer, who disagrees with the Chachamim in the previous Mishnah, he agrees here that the kohen can eat the se'ah that was separated. Why? Because the se'ah is meant to take the place of the original se'ah, which is tahor. Therefore, this se'ah can be eaten by a kohen as well. Nevertheless, even Rabbi Eliezer agrees that it cannot be prepared in a way that it must be, he agrees that it must be prepared in a way that cannot make it tameh, because he considers it to be entirely terumah, only to be machmir, to be stringent. Because since in actuality, only part of it is terumat teorah, we have to make sure that it doesn't become tameh from the rest of it, which is chulin that is tameh. So again, Rabbi Eliezer says, you have to prepare it in a way that it cannot become tameh, that it doesn't come into contact with the 7 liquids that make an item mukhshar l'tumah. Again, we said the 7 liquids, are dew, water, wine, oil, blood, milk, and honey. That is the Rabotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam. Amen v'amen.